What's up, everybody? Hope you're doing well. Thank you all for tuning into this live stream segment of Mikasa Sukasa. Of course, as always, I'm your humble host, Niko House. Today, on this particular show, I wanted to talk about something that really sat wrong with me. It rubbed me the wrong way. And of course, as most of you all know, as a progressive, I am not personally a fan of AOC. I think she's co-opted the movement, so I should go ahead and premise that before we get started. In case you are new to the channel, now I have my reasons for feeling that way, but in this particular case, I was offended. I was offended as a black male. I was offended as an activist. As a New Yorker, as people who have, as a person who's had activists in his family, because what AOC did effectively is, quote unquote, tell the story about the Black Panthers breakfast program. They had a free breakfast program at one point, but basically likening herself to the Black Panthers. And I'll go ahead and show you one of the clips from her Instagram story. Now, as you can see on the left, that's members from the Black Panthers giving out free food to children, too. And AOC in her campaign office doing the same during the pandemic, which I actually, thank her for, because at the end of the day, we do, of course, want to make sure that despite all the politics, if somebody can get direct help, that should be the goal, and that should always be applauded. So we're gonna definitely thank her for that. However, as you can see, her comparing the two, no, past and present. Implicitly, and I think most would agree, this is her implying that what she did should be likened to what the Black Panthers. In fact, she herself said that the program that she created was, quote unquote, inspired by the Black Panthers, although she literally never said that when she started this program. She never said that. And this program was actually started because she began to come under fire for grandstanding about the CARES Act and then ultimately passing it. And then, of course, not really speaking about any of the legislation that was available, introduced by people like Tulsi Gabbard. Rashida Tlaib introduced one subsequently. But there were UBI pieces of legislation out there. And instead, this is what she chose to do. Which, again, should be applauded, but I'm explaining to you what the problem is with all this. So, at the end of the day, I think it's understood by those who have been paying attention that AOC has this habit of playing to her base. Now, she primarily plays to her white base, her white progressive, white neo-progressive, and even liberal base. But she does this by weaponizing the plight of people of color, black people, poor people, and the working class. And what she does is she tries to put on this activist cloak, this anti-imperialist cloak, so that people ignore everything that she hasn't done and that she is personally ignored. This is another example of that. Pretending that she is anything close to a Black Panther, which would be tantamount to a revolutionary, to what the government refers to as a terrorist organization. For her to do that is insulting. It is. You could have just gave the history of it and then be like, okay, this is important history. Because it is important history. But there's a reason that she stopped at that history, and I'm explaining to you why. There's a reason why I'm like, no, you can't compare yourself to that. You can't be Black Panther. You can't talk about the Black Panthers. You can't even pretend. Listen, people. I don't even feel comfortable pretending like anything that I will ever do in my life can be compared to what the Black Panthers were able to do, to what Black Panther leadership put themselves through. And I'm explaining to you why. As you all know at this point, AOC is a member of the Democratic Party. As you all know, maybe not, when asked to speak up about Venezuela, she had to defer to the caucus. We all know the caucus stance on Venezuela, right? Juan Guaido is actually the president. They are actually for regime change wars. They're actually for overthrowing Maduro, who I think it's pretty safe to assume would be an ally of the Black Panthers before they were considered a terrorist organization. Because he considers himself a socialist, and Black Panthers considered themselves socialist communist party. Now, while AOC has been a good little Democrat, do you know who Bobby Seale is? Bobby Seale was one of the founders of the Black Panthers with Fred Hampton. One of the highlights of Bobby Seale's extraordinary life involved protesting at the Democratic Convention in Chicago, specifically over the Vietnam War. Got himself arrested over this. Let's just check out some of Bobby Seale's his speech during that convention. He said that we go forth as human beings to remove these pigs, these hogs, and the power structure murdering and brutalizing people, not only here in the confines of racist, decadent America, but murdering, brutalizing, and oppressing people around the world. And we go forth to deal with them. The devil always sends their racist, dirty, rotten pigs to occupy people, to occupy the community, such as the way they have this park here, Occupy. Now, just a second. There's a lesson that Minister of Defense Huey P. Newton teaches, that whenever the people disagree with the political decisions that have been made upon their heads, that whenever the people disagree with those decisions, the racist power structure sends in guns and forced to see that people accept those political decisions. We are here as revolutionaries to let them know that we refuse to accept those political decisions that maintain the oppression of our Black people and other people around the world. See, while AOC speaks at Democratic National Conventions as they prop up fascists like Joe Biden, as they uplift imperialist leadership, quote unquote, like Juan Guaido, as they aid and abet the overthrow of socialist governments like Evo Morales is in Bolivia. See, while she speaks at those conventions, Bobby Seale was protesting at those conventions, at that convention specifically, because the scope of what the Black Panthers did was so far reaching. They did not limit themselves to only fighting for Black rights here in the States, but anti-imperialism everywhere around the world where it may present itself. That's what the Black Panthers stood for. You think it was just about giving out free breakfast? Yeah, they had an amazing free breakfast program for kids. They did. But that's after they built up credibility within the community for standing up for the community, not for political parties in their interests. You think that the Black Panthers would have only criticized Donald Trump? Or do you think that Angela Davis, especially back then, would have called Nancy Pelosi Mama Bear? They probably could and would not mind being likened to the likes of somebody like Cynthia McKinney, who was basically forced out of Congress because of her stance on Israel and Palestine. And of course, other progressive issues that the Black Panthers stood for. But no. You don't get to, it is implicitly understood what you are doing this for. You are trying to pretend that you are a socialist or a democratic socialist. And although I'm not even a socialist, I'm a mix of a lot of different things. I'm not even a socialist, but I recognize when someone is trying to co-opt the brand while deferring to the caucus on issues of imperialism. While somebody who yesterday tweeted out fracking is in fact bad, But yet you push pro-fracking legislation during the primary to help prop up Kamala Harris and, of course, Levin, who introduced the legislation out of California, who is indeed a pro-fracking lobbyist, or was until he went to the House. AOC propped that legislation, whose own Green New Deal doesn't even ban fracking. If Black Panthers were here today, ladies and gentlemen, do you think they would be speaking out and then subsequently pushing for the banning of fracking? Do you think that they would support the Green New Deal? No, probably not. If the Black Panther of old, I don't think the new Black Panthers support him, but the new Black Panthers are a little bit different. They wouldn't support the Green New Deal. The Black Panthers would have not endorsed Joe Biden. They would not be supportive of Kamala Harris, of Cory Booker, who make a mockery of everything that civil rights activists at that point fought for. Kamala Harris, who announces on Martin Luther King's birthday, taking a day about a man as great as him and making it about herself. Martin Luther King was killed by the government. Government found guilty of murdering Martin Luther King in 1999. They won. His family won. They found that the government was guilty. Do you think Kamala Harris would be killed by our government for any reason whatsoever? No. Why? Because she's on their side. Black Panthers were hated by the establishment of both parties. They were hated by the FBI. They were attacked. They were ridiculed. They were deemed a terrorist organization by that same FBI that you use as an authority to prop up Russiagate narratives that we know are merely put in place by the Democrats and their allies within the intelligence community because they want to overthrow the current government because it's not consistently neoconservative enough for them. J. Edgar Hoover, when he spoke of the breakfast program, he said, yeah, it looks good. Because for those of you who don't know, J. Edgar Hoover was also the director of the FBI at that point. And he said, yeah, it looks good. It looks fine. But let's not forget that law enforcement's job is to destroy the Black Panthers and everything they stood for. The truth is, if you were like the Black Panthers, you wouldn't even dare call yourself that. If you were really like the Black Panthers. Because they are deemed a terrorist organization. Because of everything they fought for. That government that you work within and beside now, their whole goal was to destroy the Black Panthers. And effectively they did. I'm an activist. I am one of those people who've been attacked by all sides because my activism is not based on whether or not a Democrat or a Republican is introducing legislation. My activism is not based. My support of Julian Assange and press freedom is not based on whether or not he's exposing Democrats or Republicans at that time. My support of Chelsea Manning was not based on whether or not she's exposing Democrats or Republicans at that time. Snowden, same thing. My support to ban or completely reform the Espionage Act is not based on partisan politics. And as consistent as I may be on those particular issues, I wouldn't even think of calling myself anything like the Black Panthers. They were a different breed. They were a different breed. Fred Hampton was killed because he was a different breed. Bobby Seale was gagged during his trial, bro. He was gagged during his trial. His trial for protesting the Democratic Convention so that we could pull out of the Vietnam War and that the Democrats would support that effort. He was gagged during that trial. Ronald Reagan in California took their Second Amendment rights away. Law enforcement did everything they could. The establishment did everything they could to silence them. The establishment does everything they can to uplift you. So no. You don't get to pretend as if you are anything like the Black Panthers at all. Period. I appreciate you talking about the history. I appreciate you starting a food program during COVID. But then once again, why weren't you introducing UBI bills? Why didn't you introduce a food program bill? Now, granted, direct action is also good. But you could have shined the light on everything. Why didn't you call Nancy Pelosi for trying to prop up corporations via her it was $4 trillion, then it was leveraged to about $8 trillion. And she did talk about it before voting for it. Right? But did she call Nancy Pelosi during the negotiation? So we could have organized prior to that legislation, the CARES Act, that called for $8 trillion in corporate giveaways. No. Did she call out Nancy Pelosi? So when Trump just said, we can give out $1,200 checks right now, had AOC told Nancy Pelosi to take Trump up on that offer, use that massive platform she had? Nope, she can't do that. That's Mama Bear. You are part of the problem that the Black Panthers fought for and became quote unquote terrorists for. They were labeled terrorists for challenging this government that you are a part of and you prop up. You would never, ever catch the Black Panthers taking pictures with Bolivian coup sympathizers. Never. You would never have, the Black Panthers don't have to defer to a damn caucus. They were their caucus. You don't fight for Second Amendment rights like the Black Panthers did. You don't fight against imperialism like the Black Panthers did. In no real way do you fight against capitalism and the problems that are brought about with capitalism like the Black Panthers did. You wouldn't be fighting beside Nelson Mandela. You'd be making excuses for the dictator that we tried to install. Whatever lie they would have made up about Nelson Mandela, that's what you would have been. That's what you would have sided with. That's what you would have been touting. That's what you would have been repeating. In fact, it is because of the establishment that you have the platform that you have now. But I don't give a damn about no food program. The Black Panthers would not have been tacitly endorsing Elizabeth Warren. The Black Panthers would not have supported any little 12 bullet point piece of shit resolution that doesn't ban fracking. They wouldn't be supporting Cory Booker like you did. They wouldn't be supporting Julian Castro like you did, or their support for Kamala Harris. You know what they wouldn't do? They wouldn't try to lie and say, well, Tara Reid didn't actually say she wasn't voting for Joe Biden, when she in fact did very clearly say that. She said she was not voting for Joe Biden and she wasn't voting for the Democratic Party. They would not have endorsed a rapist, an imperialist, a racist, a segregationist. Nor would they make excuses for him. You're scared. You even try to talk about, fracking is in fact bad on Twitter, but you're scared. You can tag Tulsi Gabbard, but you can't tag Kamala, can you? Interesting. Never and ever have you ever displayed the bravery of people like Bobby Seale, Angela Davis, Huey P. Newton, Fred Hampton, and the like. Not ever. So back that shit up. You saw a damn post, or you saw a clip on the History Channel, and you were like, ooh, let me take a picture for my Instagram story and say that I was inspired by the Black Panthers to do this food program that I started 3-4 months ago. But you didn't say that then, because you didn't know about the food program back then, which is fine. But as you're trying, because so in the context of this conversation, you have to remember, Tulsi had just added her like, oh, nah, you know what? Fine. I'll apologize to Elon for even citing Project Veritas. Now, will you back my legislation to pardon Assange? Will you back my legislation to pardon Snowden? Will you back my legislation to reform the Espionage Act? Will you back my legislation for election integrity? And instead of responding to that, what does she do? I'm going to go on my Instagram story and talk about how I'm like the Black Panthers. Do you think the Black Panthers would have supported and fought for Assange and Snowden? Yeah. I think they probably would. Do you think that they would have expected her to do the same? If she was anything like she claimed to be, yeah, I think that they would probably expect her to do the same. So I guess we're supposed to just ignore it, right? That's what I'm told. We're supposed to ignore this type of stuff. But this, no, I'm not going to ignore this. Because the Black Panthers were different. They were just different. They were different from anything that we have ever seen. They were. They weren't just a pillar. They were a pillar in the Black community. But for the first time probably in the history of this damn country, they were a pillar in everybody's community. They had a rainbow coalition that was led by Black people. They fed people, they armed people, they educated people with real education. They didn't discriminate who they fed, who they armed, and who they educated. They welcomed everybody. And if you fought them, they fought back harder. Man, no problem with doing so. And you're not that, AOC. So stop trying to use. I mean, Fred Hampton is dead, bro. He's dead for his cause. Bobby Seale was gagged and arrested and prosecuted for his cause, for the cause of the Black Panthers. Angela Davis was arrested at one point for the same cause. Lives constantly threatened, deemed a terrorist organization, which through transitive property of reality, that means that they were considered terrorists, not superstars. That ain't you. Not by a long shot. So don't do that shit again, bro. Just don't. Respect them. Respect their legacy. Now fight. You can fight to just remind people of the legacy and get them removed. Matter of fact, why not introduce legislation to get them removed from the terrorist organization list, from the domestic terrorism list? Why not do that? Do that. Do that. Do something other than just ride the waves that other people started. Have you ever done anything for yourself? The answer is no. So with that being said, people, thank you all so much for tuning in for that live stream segment of Mikasa and Sukasa. Like, share, subscribe, comment below, but always remember more than anything else, find your balance. Peace.